Tourism is an activity that, like any activity, has an impact in the environment in which it is developed. Its effects can be positive or negative, and they reach both the society and the economy of a country. In economy, one of the outcomes of tourism is the creation of employment because it works along with many sectors, such as accommodation, food, agencies, etc., that require many people. On the other hand, it also has an impact in the society where it happens, given that local people have to interact with people from a lot of different places. Moreover, there are several annual reports with statistics and rankings in order to analyze the impact and the evolution of the tourism and travel sector within a country. Impact of tourism in economics. As we said before, tourism has a positive impact in the economy of a country because it generates jobs. It helps to increase the gross domestic product or global GDP, and it contributes to the exports and investments. It generates jobs. There are many industries that operate within the travel and tourism sector. These are transportation, accommodation, food and beverage, recreation and entertainment, and travel services. Naturally, all these sectors need workers in order to operate. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, as we see in this bar graph, the total contribution of tourism to employment was 313,221,000 jobs in 2017, which represents 9.9% of total employment, or 1 out of 10. It increases GDP. GDP is a way of defining the size of a country's economy, given that all the economic activities that result from tourism that we mentioned before contribute to the growth of the economy because it creates a multiplier effect, and therefore to the growth of the global GDP. Indeed, travel and tourism represents 10.4% of the global GDP. It contributes to the exports and investments. Doing inbound tourism implies that visitors are going to spend money in a country. If a country receives more money from tourists than the money that its citizens spend in other countries, there will be a trade surplus. This means that the exports will increase and make the economy grow. We can check this through the tourism balance of payments, which is a tool that reflects the balance between the flows of tourist imports and exports in a country. Negative impact. The main negative impact occurs to countries where tourism is the main economic activity. This industry can be affected by natural catastrophes like tornadoes, hurricanes, or tsunamis, bad weather conditions, political situations, or terrorism. For this reason, countries should not only economically depend on tourism.
Impacts of tourism in society. Tourism also has a big impact on society because people are the main receivers of tourism, both the tourists as the locals from the selected destination. Tourism can impact society in a lot of great ways, such as the feeling of national pride among the locals of the tourist destination, the break of negative stereotypes, and the preservation of national heritage. On the other hand, it can also impact in a negative way if precautions are not taken into consideration, such as the increasing of gambling, crime and prostitution, the arising of racial tension, the overproduction of objects only for commercial purposes, and the resentment due to economic circumstances. Positive impacts. Feeling of national pride among the locals of tourist destination. Tourism helps raise local awareness of the value of cultural and national sites and stimulates the feeling of pride and conservation among locals. The break of negative stereotypes. As traveling brings people from different cultures into contact and also serves as an educational activity, it can help people to understand and respect different cultures, develop mutual sympathy, and reduce their prejudices. The preservation of national heritage. Tourism is a booster for the preservation of cultural and historical traditions and contributes to the maintenance of natural resources, the protection of national heritage, and the revival of local traditions. Negative impacts. Increasing of gambling, crime, and prostitution. Crime rates increased by the growth and urbanization of an area, and mass tourism may also increase crime. Also, prostitution of children and women may arise in poor countries that are experimenting tourism, because many people who are not as privileged will exchange their bodies for money or goods. The arisement of racial tension. Most of the times, out of carelessness or ignorance, tourists tend to disrespect local customs and culture, and even invade the locals' life by taking photos or videos. These acts may seem like a background racism. The overproduction of objects only for commercial purposes. One of the main things a tourist gets when traveling are souvenirs. These souvenirs can be made using cultural objects of the destination, and due to the demand these objects get, locals are forced to accommodate them to the tourist tastes, losing the cultural value these objects have in reality. Resentment. Many tourists come from places with different lifestyles as the one in the destination, sometimes spending large amounts of money and behaving in ways that are not commonly accepted. These attitudes may cause some type of resentment and rejection from locals. To wrap up, we can see and understand how tourism is an important activity to enrich the social and economic aspects of the countries around the world. Even though not every country's economy is ruled by tourism, we could observe that every year more tourists are traveling to different countries, meaning that these countries' earnings are increasing exponentially. On the other hand, tourism is an activity that is being beneficial for developing countries and societies because it serves as a learning experience, creating bonds and getting in touch with contrasting cultures and people. The use of traveling is to regulate imagination by reality, and instead of thinking how things may be, to see them as they are. Samuel Johnson.